Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I, Manvi Berathi, along with Akshara Dhamija and Naina Yadav from the Delhi School of Economics, extend a very warm welcome to our distinguished guests, esteemed faculty, and the bright students to the Annual Day Celebrations 2022 of Delhi School of Economics. We're extremely honored to welcome our chief guest, Mr. N.K. Singh, Chairperson, 15th Finance Commission. Distinguished guest, Professor Ramesh Chand, Member, Niti Aayog, and Professor Yogesh Singh, Honorable Vice Chancellor, University of Delhi. We are pleased to have amongst us distinguished alumni and eminent retired faculty from all the three constituent departments of DSE, Economics, Sociology, and Geography. We extend our sincerest thanks to everybody for gracing the occasion. To commence the auspicious event with the welcome song Swagatam Shubh Swagatam, followed by the hymn of harmony San Gachhidhvam San Vadhadhvam from the Rig Ved, we invite on stage Sujayata Chaudhary, Michelle Rosario, and Akshi Goyal with Mr. Gulshan on the tabla and Mr. Rishabh on the harmonium. Sangachhudvam is the last word in Rig Ved, which signifies collective progress. It emphasizes the unity of minds to create healthy organizations for prosperity and happiness of all and to promote fellow feeling and righteousness. Please welcome the choir.
for such a soulful performance. We request student representatives to present planters as a token of respect to our chief guest, distinguished guest, and Honorable Vice Chancellor of the University of Delhi. We also request the students to present planters to our distinguished alumni and eminent retired faculty. From the Department of Economics, distinguished alumni, Professor Ashok Gulati, Professor Mahendra Dev, Professor Manoj Pant, and eminent retired faculty, Professor Tca Anand, Professor Santosh Chandra Panda, and Professor Ashwini Deshpande.
From the Department of Sociology, we have for the distinguished alumni, Professor Supriya Singh, Ms. Shanti George, Dr. Meena Kaushik, the eminent retired faculty, Professor Abhijit Das Gupta, Professor Radhika Chopra, Professor Rajni Palviwala, Professor Roma Chatterjee. From the Department of Geography, the distinguished alumni, Professor Usha P. Raghupati, Ms. Nagma Seher, the eminent retired faculty, Professor B. Khan, and on behalf of late Professor R.B. Singh, his daughter, Dr. Anju Singh. We now invite our director, Professor Pami Dua, for a welcome address.
A very good afternoon to everyone here. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Yogesh Singh, Mr. N.K. Singh, Professor Ramesh Chand, distinguished alumni and retired faculty, esteemed colleagues, dear students and friends. I extend a warm welcome to all of you to the annual day celebrations of the Delhi School of Economics. It gives me great pleasure to welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Yogesh Singh, and thank him for presiding over the function. I am also honored and privileged to welcome our chief guest, Mr. N.K. Singh, and distinguished guest, Professor Ramesh Chand, and are grateful to them for gracing the occasion. I am pleased to welcome dignitaries from the university and other institutions and thank them for joining us on this auspicious occasion. I warmly welcome distinguished alumni of the Delhi School of Economics. We felicitate them for their great achievements and thank them for being wonderful brand ambassadors of their alma mater. I also warmly welcome our distinguished retired faculty members. We thank and felicitate them for being pillars of strength of this grand institution. I am delighted to welcome faculty, staff, and students of the Delhi School of Economics. The last 2 years, as we all know, were challenging in many ways due to the pandemic. Nevertheless, in these unique circumstances, I am glad that we are able to celebrate the annual day of Delhi School of Economics, especially since the current year, 2022, is a landmark year for the University of Delhi. The University of Delhi was founded on May 1st, 1922, with 3 colleges and 750 students. Now, a century later, the university includes 90 colleges, 16 faculties, 86 departments, and almost 7 lakh students. It is a matter of great pride that over the last 100 years of its glorious existence, the university has emerged as an institution of great eminence. We at the Delhi School of Economics are privileged to be a part of this institution of eminence with a century of academic excellence. Today is thus an occasion for us to rejoice, reflect, and celebrate the legacy of this magnificent institution. I take this opportunity to say a few words about the history of the Delhi School of Economics. The Delhi School of Economics was established in 1949 as a center for advanced learning and research in the social sciences, with Professor V.K.R.V. Rao as its founder director and India's first Prime Minister, Honorable Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, as its president. Our founder's vision was to set up an institution that would produce students who would play an important role in the economic development and social progress of the country. Professor Rao was also greatly influenced by the teachings of Swami Vivekananda and believed in an integrated development of a person and all his faculties through education. Thus, his vision extended beyond making Delhi School of Economics a center for excellence in teaching and research. He wanted to instill in students social consciousness so that they serve the society with sincerity and commitment. Professor Rao guided the development of the school as director from 1949 to 1957 before becoming the Vice Chancellor of the University of Delhi in 1957. Under his Vice Chancellorship, the idea of adding more social science disciplines in the University of Delhi was implemented in 1959 with the establishment of the departments of sociology and geography. The constituents of the Delhi School of Economics have evolved over time. Currently, it comprises the departments of economics, geography, and sociology, which are part of the Faculty of Social Sciences of the University of Delhi. It also houses the Ratan Tata Library, a premier library in social sciences in the country. The Delhi School of Economics has entered its 73rd year in 2022. The Department of Economics was established in 1942 as a one-man department with the appointment of Professor V.K.R.V. Rao as the first professor of the university and has thus entered its 80th year. The departments of Geography and Sociology have entered their 63rd year this year. Once again, I warmly welcome all of you to the Delhi School of Economics and especially welcome our distinguished guests to this great temple of learning. In the words of Professor V.K.R.V. Rao, after all, there are many universities, but only one Delhi School of Economics. A few words by way of introduction of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Chief Guest, and distinguished guest. Professor Yogesh Singh assumed the charge of Vice Chancellor of the University of Delhi in October 2021. Prior to this, he served as the Vice Chancellor of Delhi Technological University, Director of Netaji Subhash Institute of Technology, Delhi, and Vice Chancellor of Maharaja Sayaji Rao University of Baroda, Gujarat. He received his M.Tech in Electronics and Communication Engineering and PhD in Computer Engineering from National Institute of Technology, Kurukshetra, Haryana. He is a distinguished academician and prolific researcher and has more than 250 publications in reputed journals. Professor Singh serves on various prestigious committees, bodies, and board of directors. He is a member of the Executive Committee of National Assessment and Accreditation Council. He is also the chairman of Governing Board of Information and Library Network Center, Gandhinagar. A very warm welcome to you, Professor Singh. Mr. N.K. Singh is currently chairman of the 15th Finance Commission and president of Institute of Economic Growth. He is an alumnus of the Delhi School of Economics and completed Masters in Economics in 1962. He has presided as chairman of the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Review Committee. He also served as a member of the upper house of the Parliament, the Rajya Sabha, from 2008 to 2014. Mr. Singh had a distinguished career as a member of the Indian Administrative Services. He served as Secretary to the Prime Minister of India and Member Planning Commission, among other senior leadership roles. On the academic front, he is a member of the governing body of Nalanda University. He has been an eminent guest lecturer at prestigious institutions like Columbia, Yale, and Stanford. He is also co-chairman of the India Advisory Committee, London School of Economics. Mr. Singh has authored many books, including Politics of Change, Not by Reason Alone, The New Bihar, Rekindling Governance and Development, and his autobiography, Portraits of Power, Half a Century of Being at Ringside. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Singh. Professor Ramesh Chand is currently a member of Niti Aayog and chairman of Board of Governors of Institute of Economic Growth. He has a PhD in Agricultural Economics from the Indian Agricultural Research Institute, New Delhi. He is a fellow at the National Academy of Agricultural Sciences and the Indian Society of Agricultural Economics. He has been involved in policy formulation for the agriculture sector for the last 2.5 decades. Prior to joining Niti Aayog, he was director, National Institute of Agricultural Economics and Policy Research, New Delhi. He also served as a member of the 15th Finance Commission. Professor Ramesh Chand has worked in senior academic positions as ICAR National Professor, Professor and Head, Institute of Economic Growth, and Professor at Punjab Agricultural University, Ludhiana. He has authored 7 books and published more than 150 research papers in reputed journals. He is also the recipient of many prestigious awards. A very warm welcome to you, Professor Ramesh Chand. And once again, a very warm welcome to all of you present here, and also to our students who are connected with us virtually in 2 big lecture theatres of the Department of Economics. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, we invite our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Yogesh Singh, to honor our chief guest, Mr. N.K. Singh, with a shawl and a memento.
पीछे आ भाई वाइट में
We also invite him to felicitate our distinguished guest, Professor Ramesh Chand, with a shawl and a memento. Thank you, sir. Now we request our distinguished guest, Professor Ramesh Chand, to please address the audience.
Chief guest of today's function, Shri N.K. Singh ji, who himself happened to be one of the most distinguished alumni of Delhi School of Economics. Vice Chancellor Dr. Yogesh Singh ji, Director of Delhi School of Economics, Professor Pamidua, distinguished alumni being honored today. I really feel happy that I have worked with a couple of them, like Professor Gulati, Mahendra Dev ji, Manoj Pant. So I feel so happy that I am here on the occasion when they are being recognized by their own institutions. I really feel honored to be invited to inaugural day function of Delhi School of Economics. For me, honestly, it is no less than a pilgrimage. And I always considered Delhi School of Economics as the seat of greatest, highest learning in economics, in not only in the country. Even if you look abroad, that standard and level of the school is no less than what is best in the world, whether it is London School of Economics, Oxford, Cambridge, like that. So you all know about it. In fact, I benefited immensely from the knowledge generated in Delhi School of Economics, from the academic work at Delhi School of Economics, during my doctoral work, which was on system of input, demand and supply functions. I learnt a lot from work of late Professor Raj Krishna, who himself did a lot of work on supply responsiveness. Also his work with Professor Ray Chaudhary, later on with Ajay Chibberji in the area of supply response, food policy, zoning, and many other areas. Later on, when I was working at Institute of Economic Growth, I used to attend a couple of seminars being organized at Delhi School of Economics, and I must say that learnings from participation in those seminars has really gone a long way in my professional career. Otherwise, I don't think if I have not learned from institution like Delhi School of Economics and from my experience at Institute of Economic Growth, I think a person whose education is in agriculture can't even dream of joining as a principal advisor in Niti Aayog. But I remain indebted to whosoever was the person in the school or at Institute of Economic Growth who benefited me directly or indirectly in shaping and influencing my professional career. I mentioned about Professor K.L. Krishna. I think that is just because I work in agriculture economics, but there were similar kind of authorities, similar kind of experts at Delhi School of Economics in almost all branches of economics, and also in sociology as well as geography. And Delhi School of Economics guided policy making in India for a very, very long time. I knew it earlier also, but now being part of Niti Aayog, when I look at any past report or working group or those kind of things, then you see the imprint of Delhi School of Economics in not only erstwhile Planning Commission and I think overall policy making in the country. I just feel that the need for guidance in policy from think tank like Delhi School of Economics, Institute of Economic Growth, or Indira Gandhi Institute of Development Economics Research today is much greater than in the past. Why I am saying so? Because I realize that today policy making is not only becoming more and more complex, it is also becoming more and more difficult. Why it is becoming difficult? I would like to share with you something which I am experiencing, that today if you look at the policy debate, you just find that those debates are being dominated by ideology-driven people, sometime by journalists, sometime by, I would say, self-anointed experts. And why they are dominating this policy debate, I think one reason is that increased role of media. Earlier, if you had to establish your credential as an expert in some area, you were required to publish a paper in a peer-reviewed journal, you were required to publish books, deliver seminar, and all those things. So, but today, the only qualification you need is speak good, whether it is English or Hindi or any regional language, and you become experts. So as a result, you just find that from these debates, the kind of public perception that is being created, it is not well-founded. Sometimes I used to feel that in economics we were taught that Gresham law of money, that how bad money can drive out good money. I think now we are experiencing Gresham law of ideas, where I find that bad ideas are driving out good ideas in policy making, and I consider it as a very, very dangerous kind of practice. And I think this has probably happened that we in academia have started, for whatever reason, maintaining low profile, yielding more space to other kind of people. Today, sometime in TV debate, when they announce that such and such person who is a policy expert, I really feel ashamed that such names are being identified as policy expert of India. So you compare them with other kind of people who really are policy experts. I feel there is a need to change it, and that is a responsibility of all of us, and that is more serious responsibility of think tank like Delhi School of Economics and Institute of Economic Growth, and of course a few others. I also would like to touch upon that what is the consequence of experts not playing that active role. It is not that no expert is playing role. If you look at agriculture policy, food policy, work of Professor Gulati is known to everyone. But if you start counting that how many people from academic are participating in those debates and how many people from other spheres which I just mentioned are participating, you can just count these real experts on fingers. Like when it comes to agriculture policy, food policy, proper agriculture and food policy, I just see that if I have to say that this is a genuine work, only two names come to my mind. One is Professor S.S. Johal and another is Dr. Ashok Gulati. So other than that, in a country of 1.38 billion, if you feel that people who are really genuine kind of experts are so few, so then I think we need to do some sort of introspection. The danger of yielding this space to so-called non-expert becoming experts is more visible in agriculture than in other areas. We were taught in agriculture economics that two types of factors matter for agriculture growth and development. One set can be called price factor, another set is non-price factors. But you just find that over time, the non-price factors have gradually taken the back seat, and the price factors are just becoming dominant in terms of decision making, in terms of policy making, whether it is political dispensation, whether it is farmer group, whether it is some kind of a group of experts. So they will talk, give more subsidy, give more price support to agriculture, and that is the way to go forward. And I found on TV one day, one policy expert called by media as a policy expert was asking that MSP of wheat should be raised to 10,000 rupee a quintal. Only then farmer will have reasonable income, only then their distress will go, and otherwise it will not go. Not realizing that if 100 rupees paid to the farmer, the consumer will be required to pay 200 rupee, and 40% of the people in this country don't get a base of more than 300 rupees per day. So you can imagine that without bothering about implication, making this kind of wild suggestions, and as a result of influence of this kind of, I would say, public perception and dominance in debate, today you just find that agriculture has become so dependent on state support that it is not able to walk without crutches. If I share with you some of the numbers, they are mind-boggling. If you look at what is the subsidy given to agriculture, we generally look at fertilizer subsidy. We don't recognize how much subsidy is going as interest subvention, because if a farmer repay loan on time, he gets an interest subvention of 4%. In some of the states, if a farmer pay loan on time, the state pays entire interest. Farmer doesn't have to pay any interest. Then there is a crop insurance, 70 to 80% of the premium is paid by central government. Then you know that there is this issue of area of sugar cane. Every 4 or 5 months, some proposal come to Niti for clearing 5,000 crore rupees, 6,000 crore rupees for paying to mills to clear area of the farmers. Then internal freight subsidy. So if you reckon all those things, you will find that we've reached that whatever is the WTO norm of 10% support for value of 10% of value of agriculture. Similarly, on output side, if you look at what is the total support from the government, Professor Gulati and I keep doing these exercises. The number keeps changing. The latest number is that if we are buying anything at MSP, the economic cost comes to be 30 to 35% more than what is MSP. And government is not able to dispose the produce even at MSP, which means that to pay 100 rupee to the farmer, it costs 35 rupee to the government just to give MSP. So we are going for total procurement of 3 lakh crore of rupee, and in turn give some sort of support of 1 lakh crore rupees, which is other than whatever is the food subsidy. I am not talking about food subsidies. I am raising these issues because you imagine the fiscal implication of this kind of support. What percent of total revenue earned by central government is just going to support one agriculture sector? Since we are spending more and more money on support and subsidies, therefore, the measures which are needed to give push to the growth, measures which are needed to improve efficiencies are not working. So as a result, we just find that we are caught in a vicious cycle, that since infrastructure is not improving much, irrigation is not improving much, no farmer leader is asking this country that why area under canal irrigation is declining. Everybody feels that free power is there, we will go more and more for too well. So as a result of that, you just find that increase in real cost means still there is a demand for higher and higher prices. So I can keep talking about these things, but I think I should not take too much of time. The point which I want to make is that our policies, our support to agriculture and many other sectors is going in a direction that if we do not put a check on it, I think day is not far when our fate will be same as that of Sri Lankan economy. So I am saying this in Delhi School of Economics because this institution has played very important role in guiding policies in the past. Probably once again you need to rise to the occasion, and policy making bodies and also enlightened citizen of this country look at you with a hope to put policy making process in this country on the right track, and that can be done if you just create awareness among ruling dispensation and among general public that what are the dangers involved if we promote culture of freebies. I think it is from here that some writing can change mood of this country, that we should move from culture of freebies to culture of prudence. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now we request Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Yogesh Singh, to please address the audience.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to all of you. Mr. N.K. Singh, Chairman, 15th Finance Commission, Government of India, and Chief Guest of the Annual Day celebrations. Professor Ramesh Chand, Member, Niti Aayog, Government of India. Professor Pamidwa, Director, Delhi School of Economics. Professor Shri Prakash, Director, South Campus. Vikas Gupta ji, Registrar of the University, respected deans, head of the departments, faculty members, invited guests, my dear students, good afternoon again. When Professor Ramesh Chand was referring to the non-experts, I am non-expert here because I don't have any idea about economics. But I do understand economics as a common man, as a common citizen of India. But when it comes to the expert advice or when it comes to the expert thought process, I may not be the right person. But since the Professor Pamidwa has invited me, that's why I'm here, and I'm here as a Vice Chancellor of the University. So bear with me if I say something which is not relevant or which is very, very irrelevant today. First of all, I would like to congratulate all of you for the celebrations of Annual Day and Delhi School of Economics, a very reputed seat of learning, and having 3 departments, economics, geography and sociology, and all are 70 years old, more than 70 years old. They have already served the country for so many years and involved in the many policy making for the country. When it comes to the reputation, one is the QS ranking, as this Department of Economics is placed in 101 to 150 category in the QS ranking, best institution of the country, and economics department. And the geography was in 2017 was 101 to 150 in 2017, which was the first best in the country, and now they are in 151 to 200. It happens sometime, but we have to work very hard to improve our rankings. One good thing is also, when I was going through the documents given by the Professor Pamidwa, that Delhi School of Economics has given 3 vice chancellors for University of Delhi. A great achievement. Professor V.K.R.V. Rao, Professor B.N. Ganguly, and Professor K.N. Raj. 3 professors from the same school. It's a matter of pride to all of us. And on from the administration side, I would like to thank all of you for giving us 3 vice chancellors. So congratulations for such magnificent and illustrious journey of more than 70 years. And now in Delhi University, we are working only in one direction, that we want to place Delhi University in the category of first 200 best universities of the world. And this can happen. This can happen. We have the capability and capacity to do it. And this will happen when Delhi School of Economics will also play a very, very significant and important role in that. Because this is one of the premier institution of University of Delhi. So you have to work very hard when it comes to teaching learning processes and the research. We should do, meaning remains the same, that something very, very significant and outstanding is expected from Delhi School of Economics. Not only for the good for Delhi University, but also for the country. Delhi School, as Professor Ramesh Chand has said, Delhi School has contributed immensely in the policy making. Yes. So we have touched, framed, affected, and impacted many, many policies of the country. But now in 2022, and we have many, many research students also. As a school, we should identify some new thrust areas also. Which country wants research in such areas? This is very, very important, and we should remember on the annual day that we have to identify those areas which are very, very important for the country. And as I am not the expert, but some of the areas which are very important for the country, which Delhi School of Economics should work hard, publish papers, publish policy papers, advise the government, advise the think tanks of the government, and some, my dear, those who are PhD students here, they should work in such directions. One important aspect is the growth rate. What I feel, and many common people of India feel, that if India can maintain the growth rate of 10% for another 10 years or 15 years, we can eradicate poverty from India. This is a statement. Easy to give a statement, 10% growth rate for another 10-15 years, then we can eradicate the poverty. It means what? First message is very clear, that we should not compromise on growth rate. Whatever expert says, whatever proposals they say, if it compromises the growth rate, at least for next 15 years, country should not accept such proposals. That's my view on the whole subject. It is very, very important. Why I am saying this? Because we have already suffered a lot. From 1900 to 1950, our growth rate was 0. 1900 to 94, 50 years, India's growth rate was 0. From 1950 to 1980, 3.5% growth rate. 1980 to 2002, 5 to 7% growth rate. 2003 to 8, 9% growth rate. And if we average this, some disturbance here, thoda dekhna, echo kam karna. And from 1951 to 2021, 70 years, GDP annual growth rate is 5.81%. It means we have not achieved, but I am saying the 10% growth rate for another 15 years. How to achieve this? This is an open question. Economists should work on it. Our students should work on it. Some few students, PhD students should work on it. How to design instruments, those who can give countries a growth rate of 10%. Because if we expect that the government of India will do everything, or the state governments will do everything, they are doing it. They are working on the advices of the experts, advices of the other citizens and other policymakers, but still, we are not able to achieve this. How to do it? So instruments should be designed, policy work should be done on this subject. How to achieve 10% growth rate for another 15 years, if we really want to make India as a developed nation. Next, related objective should be, now Honorable Prime Minister of India has said that my dream is to have that India should have $6 trillion economy. Right now, our economy size is $3 trillion, 2.71 actually, $2.71 trillion economy. And we are 6th or 7th, the best economy of the world. But I am not going in numbers. As you know, on 3rd January 2022, 3rd January, this year only, in January, Apple market capitalization crossed $3 trillion. Like a company Apple, whose market capitalization is more than India's economic size, and this is a country of 131 crore people, and we are 18% of the world population. And our GDP contribution in the world's GDP is 2.86 or 3%. Otherwise, actually, it should be 18% because we are 18% of the world's population. Our contribution should be 18%. That should be the objective. But right now, it is only 2.68 or 2.7%. Many things are required to be done. If we say our target is $6 trillion economy, how to achieve it? Those who are in such areas, this Delhi School of Economics, a premier institution, should have a group on this, a working group on this, and some PhD students should work on this area, design such instruments also, one for the growth rate and another is for this one, which is very, very important for the country, how to achieve this. Because we don't have such instruments right now. It's a challenge. If we will not do it, then who will do it? If we keep on replicating the models of the Western world, nothing wrong in it. Nothing wrong in it. We can replicate. If something good has happened elsewhere, we should do it. We should replicate it. But you know, our problems and challenges are very different. It's a country of 131 crore people. America's size is 40 crore. If we keep on replicating, then we will not get the results as it is expected. Such results we are not getting here. So we have to work in Indian conditions. And that is the duty of the persons who are working in this area. Another very interesting, not for, this is for the common man. If I say, I am a salaried person and I want to invest my money somewhere, I don't have instruments right now. And worldwide people are suffering. If I say, you say there are many instruments, why are you worried about it? But you know, if I say, instrument is one is the fixed deposit. Interest rate, 5%. Inflation is 6%. Inflation is 6%, and in the country there is a tax on interest also. If we minus everything, it is minus something. It is not positive. It means what? It is not. FDs cannot even protect the value of money. Every day the value of money is degrading. Coming to the other is the mutual fund. The best mutual fund in India, 11% return. Best for 5 years. Otherwise, the average is 8 to 9% only. 6% inflation, tax on mutual fund and everything, it is 0. It means what? Maximum best mutual fund can protect the value of money. Only protect the value of money. It means it's also not a very good instrument. Next is the debt instruments and the government bonds, 8 to 9%, same story here also, because inflation plus interest plus some cost on doing it, everything is negative or just slightly positive. PPF 7.5% only protects your money. GPF 8% protects your money. So there is a need for an instrument which can give us 15% return. Those who will design it, sustainable, reliable, transparent, understandable, available, open for the general public, I think next Nobel Prize will go to that person. We don't have any instrument which can give us 15% return because our challenges, my father's generation challenges were very different because they were easily getting 15% returns. They were not worried about any investment strategies. They were also having pensions. So that comfortable generation, ours is also a last comfortable generation. But our students, our coming generations, we don't have social security. what will happen to NPS? We really don't know the returns because nothing has been calculated as on today. But so returns are unknown, so we need a very proper investment instrument. This is open, transparent, reasonably stable, which can give 15% returns. 15% return minus 6 plus interest, at least that should give us 7% growth. My dear student, think about it. Can we design such an instrument? Whole world is waiting for that instrument. Think about it. In Delhi School of Economics, create a group on this. Can we do it? If we can do it from India and Delhi School of Economics, it will be a real service for the country. Not easy, I do understand. Not easy. But yes, so this is a challenge for economists and researchers, my dear students. So we need passionate, committed, hard-working students. And, आसान होता तो सब कर ही लेते ना. It's not easy. But, we have to think about it. We have to think about it. बशीर बद्र ने बहुत अच्छी कविता की कुछ लाइनें बोलता हूँ अपने स्टूडेंट्स के लिए कि आंखों में रहा दिल में उतर कर नहीं देखा, आंखों में रहा दिल में उतर कर नहीं देखा, कश्ती के मुसाफिर ने समंदर नहीं देखा. आंखों में रहा दिल में उतर कर नहीं, कमिटमेंट की बात हो रही है. आंखों में रहा दिल में उतर कर नहीं देखा, कश्ती के मुसाफिर ने समंदर नहीं देखा, बेवक्त घर चला आऊंगा तो सब चौंक पड़ेंगे. एक उम्र हुई दिन में कभी घर नहीं देखा, जब से चला हूं. एक उम्र हुई दिन में कभी घर नहीं देखा, जब से चला हूं मंजिल पे नजर है, मेरी आंख ने मील का पत्थर नहीं देखा. That commitment, that zeal, that passion is required to create such instruments. And now country wants us to create such instruments. Think about it, work on it, create working groups, debate, deliberate, because that will be relevant research in 21st century for not only for India, but for the entire globe. And lastly, that is for the students. I want a promise from all my students, those who are here, that we will not do anything in our lifetime which is against the interest of our country. How many of you can give me that promise? In our lifetime, we will not do anything which is against the interest of our country. और एक भी नहीं रूम में, फिर दिल्ली स्कूल ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स का कोई फायदा नहीं है. हाँ? No, they are. हाँ, but जो बाकी बैठे हैं वो भी दे सकते हैं वैसे जितना भी जिसका बचा है. But I am really thankful to Professor Pamidua, Director, Delhi School of Economics, for inviting me for the annual day celebrations. I hope that some of the things which I shared may be fruitful, useful, and meaningful to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now, we invite our esteemed chief guest, Mr. N.K. Singh, to please address the audience.
Thank you very much. I am deeply privileged to speak at the annual day celebration of the prestigious Delhi School of Economics. I'm grateful to the organizers, particularly to Director Pamidua, for having given me this opportunity. I'm also grateful to the Vice Chancellor, Yogesh Singh ji, not only for his rather passionate vision, what he expects this institution to do, vision which all of us would like to share, of enabling India to realize its growth potential, which is around 10%, as he said. This has been a quest, alas, Yogesh ji, a somewhat elusive quest so far, but we need to pursue this quest for the other two objectives which you mentioned, namely how to make India a relevant $6 trillion economy, to give rates of return to an average Indian on his investment and on his savings, which would more than compensate for the factors of inflation. I'm filled with great nostalgia as I see many of my friends like Ashok, Naji, and to many others. I'm filled with great nostalgia, Pamiji, for having come to the Swami Vivekananda Hall, where this function is being held. I recall the great professors who taught me here. Indeed, Yogesh, when you mentioned the names of the 3 illustrious vice-chancellors which this institution has produced, I had the privilege of being taught. All 3 of them, Vijendra Kasturi Ranga Bhattaraja Rao, by Kaknath Anand Raj, by Birennath Ganguly, and there are some others who are making a big name elsewhere, like Professor Jagdish Bhagwati, his wife Padma Bhagwati, at that time when she taught me, Padma Desai, and to many others like Professor Ali Muhammad Khusru, by Professor P.N. Dhar, who had shaped India's economic policy for a very long time. This is that Vivekananda Hall, where I had the privilege, and therefore it fills me with a great sense of nostalgia that I have had the opportunity to come here again, having been an alumni of this prestigious institution having done it in 1962, a training and acumen which has served me so immeasurably well in my 50 years of engagement in public policy making. Having said this, I must also confess, and this I share your view, Yogesh, in a lighter vein, that economics is too important to be left to economists. What matters is political economy and the symmetry between economy and politics. That is why the famous work of many founding fathers of economics, we recall, is not about economics, it's about political economy. Recall Adam Smith, recall Marshall, recall many others who emphasize the need for a symmetry between sensible economics and sensible politics. That, Yogesh, is a key factor which will bring about the transformative change which you seek, which all of us seek, and which is indeed our lasting quest. The Indian economy has, of course, rebounded with great speed. It has amazed the world to come back and to come back better with overall macroeconomic stability, which has taken India's worst critics to great surprise. Recent data in the last 2 days, which we see, the same organizations which were critical of us. The IMF was the first one to point out that extreme poverty in India has come down very substantially. Yesterday, the World Bank came out with another set of statistics. Indeed, the World Bank statistics are wrong because the progress has been deeper. They have not reckoned for the important factor of what public free distribution system has done in bringing about the change in extreme poverty. But these are far-reaching changes. We need to pursue this to realize along with other far-reaching changes. So that is why, keeping all this in mind, and keeping in mind without anticipating what Ramesh was going to say, and keeping in mind what Vice-Chancellor Yogesh you said, the theme which I have broadly selected for this little interaction is a theme of freebie economics, its implications, social and political. Indeed, as we know, India is a union of states. It is not a confederation of states. It is not a question of holding together, but of coming together. The union is indestructible. The configuration of states can change, but the union is indestructible. The union, therefore, is integral to center and the states. The strength of the center lies in the strength of the states. Therefore, the macroeconomic stability of the union is contingent on the macroeconomic stability of both the center and the states. economic planners and investors look to the overall debt and the fiscal numbers of both the union and the states. That is why, in grappling with this complex issue, the 15th Finance Commission, which I had the privilege to chair, devoted an entirely separate volume, Volume 4, to the states themselves. That volume analyzes each state in minute detail: its fiscal deficit, growth trajectory, its challenges, and what are the handicaps. Ramesh ji, I had the privilege of having him as a member of my commission, and he brought great value and purpose to the deliberations of the commission. Unfortunately, the political, sometimes, talking of this kind, sometimes one pays the most for the things one gets for nothing, unquote. What Einstein said is embedded in deeper reasoning. There is a degree of ambiguity of what freebies imply. We need to distinguish between the concept of merit goods, public goods, which are exceptionally desirable. Expenditure, for instance, on health, employment, in terms of public distribution system, on support to education, and enhanced health possibilities, particularly in times of the pandemic. Clearly, all over the world, these would be considered a desirable expenditure. Therefore, it is not how cheap the freebies are of a different kind, but how expensive they are for the economy, for life quality, and more importantly, for social cohesion in the long run. We must dread the thought of replicating the culture of comparative freebie politics. We must go to the route of achieving higher rates of economic growth, something which Yogesh ji rightly emphasized. We must emphasize the race to efficiency and the race to prosperity is not the race to freebies. I say so for seven important reasons, I believe. First, that freebies undercut the basic framework of macroeconomic stability. The policy of freebies, apart from fiscal consequences, distorts expenditure priorities instead of expenditure on the overall improvement of life quality of the population, improving health and educational outcomes. Outlays are concentrated in areas of subsidy, in terms of freebies of one kind or the other. What therefore does this mean to the fiscal sustainability of the states, of which debt is an important component? There is also the issue of the credit rating of each individual state, something which deserves greater emphasis. Each state, we believe, needs to get themselves credit rated annually. Illustratively, in the case of Punjab, and I say so illustratively because I'm straight looking at Ashok Gulati ji, a great expert in Punjab. I'm straight looking at Ramesh Chandji, a great expert coming from Punjab. Look at Punjab. Estimates vary. Some have speculated that these freebies might cost in the region of 17,000 crores for their implementation. If we take everything impacting the debt ratio of Punjab, there's going to be an additional impact of 3% of GSDP. As you know, debt to GDP of Punjab is already at 53.3% in 21-22, which will worsen on account of these new challenges. There are other states which equally are in a difficult debt situation. Take the case of Rajasthan, which has added 1% more to its debt figure, which already stands at a rather sad figure of 38.9% for 21-22. These are illustrations. I can give illustrations across the spectrum of states and across political parties on this new culture of freebie politics. Second, and something which both all economists who are here, or students, particularly from this prestigious institution, will realize, distorting expenditure priorities. Take, for instance, the change to the new pension scheme, of contributory pension scheme, which was prevailed earlier, to the new pension scheme, and the movement now to go back to the old pension scheme of a fixed rate of return. In the state of Rajasthan, it was announced that the state could revert to the old pension scheme. This decision is regressive. This decision is regressive considering that the old pension scheme was based on the basic fact, which was inherently inequitable. Why inequitable? Brought out so brilliantly by people who have written on it, by Rajiv Maheshi, the former Controller Auditor General, by other economists like Ila Patnaik and others. Take, for instance, the fact that the civil servants in Rajasthan make up a small fraction of the population. Such a small fraction, capturing such a large part of the revenue resources of the state in such a disproportionate way, raises the basic issue of equity. The pension and the salary revenues of Rajasthan account for 56% of its taxes and non-tax revenues. Thus, the 6% of the population, which make up the civil servants, would benefit from 56% of the state's revenues. A small fraction of the salaried class occupying such a major share of the state's revenues. Is this fair? Is equitable? Is this progressive? It is fraught with dangers of intergenerational inequality and hurts the basic principle of equality and morality. Third, the issue of intergenerational equity leads to greater social inequalities and expenditure priorities being distorted away from growth-enhancing objectives. The science of economics and even the science of social sciences have not yet had a scientific method of studying intergenerational debt swap. Intergenerational debt swap studies is, alas, in a nascent stage. This is true of change of governments, between states, between nations. One state cannot pass on its debt to another state, nor can one nation equally pass on its debt to another nation. These are issues which inherently get raised when you talk about intergenerational equity considerations. Fourth, the movement away from the importance of environment. When we talk of free bees, it is in the context of providing illustratively, for instance, free power of a certain kind, free power, free water, and free other kinds of free fertilizers to mention. Some of you have written so brilliantly on this. This distracts away from environmental objectives and from sustainable growth, from achieving the objective of renewable energy, moving away from fossil fuel, unless power distribution companies are altered. Rameshji and I, we went to 28 states of India. By then, J&K had become a union territory. The big giant elephant in state finances of every state is the unpaid dues of electricity generating companies. If you do not move away from this philosophy, states will be trapped the same kind of a debt conundrum, and we'll move away from the broader objective, dear to this nation, dear to the leadership of this nation, on moving increasingly away from dependence on fossil fuel to dependence on renewable energy, which will catapult India to a new growth and a new League of Nations. Fifth, it distorts, and Ashok, you know this, Ramesh, you know this, on agricultural priorities. We need to move away the agricultural economics in this country, so extensive use of water and fertilizers, because the consequences of depleting supply, receding groundwater aquifers is too forbidding to even imagine. The economics of freebies accentuates this in a major way. Sixth, its debilitating impact on manufacturing. Freebies lower the quality and competitiveness of the manufacturing sector by detracting from efficient and competitive infrastructure, enabling high factor efficiencies in the manufacturing sector. Its time is growth, therefore gainful employment, and there is no substitute, therefore, to growth, as your Vice Chancellor has so eloquently pointed out. Sixth, and last but not the least, this raises a broader issue which has been troubling me for some time. And thank you, Director, for giving me this opportunity. No better place for me to air this than here. Last but not the least, on whether the politics and the economics of freebies compels us to now think on whether it is time for India to think of what may be loosely called sub-national bankruptcy. If you want a healthy nation, you want healthy states. Would you want to impair the health of the nation by following policies in some state governments which are fiscally so profligate? Freebies do not distinguish between profligate and non-profligate states, and whether therefore you can think of a recourse to sub-national bankruptcy. States have limited resources. Whatever they can garner from a rising curve of GST, where revenues are now doing well, but live outside the GST, limited flexibility, because if you're going to be electricity free, and that's something which should be included in that, if you're not going to have property taxes and other devices, then I think this is going to be a debt burden which they will find increasingly unsustainable. In this sense, we must not forget that constitutional amendments made earlier under Article 293(3) of the Constitution, which enables the states to seek the permission of the central government for contracting any debt, is a sharp instrument, but it's a sharp hammer. We should not use the hammer to force the states to comply with the broad fiscal norms. And I think we need to bring about a change. And this is exactly something that the Vice Chancellor said, that we must rekindle thought in the pursuit of sensible economics and sensible politics. In a classic sense, therefore, we have become profligate, states can become profligate, sometimes immediately rush to the central government. I do not wish to quote examples, little realizing that the central government has no recourse. Under the Constitution, the primary source of states' finances are the Finance Commission, and the central government can only come to their aid in times of emergency, of flood, war, natural disasters, or a pandemic. They can come to their rescue under Article 282 of the Constitution, but cannot supersede the basic functions under Article 280 of the Constitution, which is embedded deep into our thinking process. The race to the bottom implies that policy of freebies, contrary to sensible economics, it implies that eventually states compete with each other, undercut each other, lowering taxes, in enhancing their expenditure, doing away with growth-enhancing policy. We must strive for a race to efficiency through a laboratory of democracy and sanguine federalism, where states use their authority to harness innovative ideas and solutions to common problems from which other states can emulate. The economics of freebies has been summed up in some form or the other. Those who believe in enhanced public outlay must remember that the father of enhanced public outlay was, perhaps all of you would know, John Maynard Keynes. And what did he say? And I quote, he said, "There is no harm in being sometimes wrong, especially if one is promptly found out." Unquote. We have promptly found out that the economics of freebies is deeply flawed, is a passport to fiscal disaster, and by no means the road to efficiency, much less to prosperity. And that is a road we must seek, and that is why I selected the broad theme of the politics and economics, freebies so deeply flawed. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Before I conclude,
Then I have the privilege I'm misusing this opportunity that I have to present my autobiography of 50 years in the domain of public policy, which covers a bit of the period that I stayed in the Delhi School of Economics. And I want to give this to you, Ramesh. I also say, excellence for this institution to Delhi University. And Hamiji, since you are heading such an important, then I also have one copy of this.
जो मेरे में
I have
उसमें आ ही नहीं
also,
रहे
since you mentioned Yogesh, the Ratan Tata Library, from where I learned a lot. I'm leaving behind a special copy for the Ratan Tata Library, and also some copies for distinction. Thank you.
पीछे आ जाओ
Thank you, sir. Now, we proceed with the award ceremony of our distinguished alumni and eminent retired faculty. We will start with the Department of Economics. We request our Chief Guest, Distinguished Guest, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Director Ma'am, and the Head of Department for Economics, Professor Surendra Kumar, to do the honors. Distinguished Alumni, Professor Ashok Gulati. Professor Gulati did his MA in 1975 and PhD in 1985 from the Delhi School of Economics. He is currently Infosys Chair Professor for Agriculture at the Indian Council for Research on International Economic Relations. He is former Chairman of the Commission for Agriculture Costs and Prices. He was also on the Central Board of Directors of the Reserve Bank of India. He was director at the International Food Policy Research Institute and the chair professor NABARD at Institute of Economic Growth. He also served as the member of the Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister. He was honored with the Padma Shri Award in 2015. Professor S. Mahendra Dev. Professor Dev did his MPhil in 1981 and PhD in 1988 from the Delhi School of Economics. He has been the Director and Vice Chancellor, Indira Gandhi Institute of Development Research in Mumbai since 2010. Prior to this, he was the Chairman of the Commission for Agriculture Costs and Prices, Ministry of Agriculture. Professor Dev is the Chairman of the Institute of Development Studies, Andhra Pradesh. He is a member of the Executive Committee of International Economic Association and of the Governing Council of Association of Indian Universities. He has published widely and has received several awards. He received an honorary doctorate, D.Lit, from Acharya Nagarjuna University, Andhra Pradesh. Professor Manoj Pant. A graduate of St. Stephen's College, University of Delhi, Professor Manoj Pant completed his MA from the Delhi School of Economics in 1975 and PhD from the Southern Methodist University, Dallas, Texas, USA in 1982. He was a faculty member of the Center of International Trade and Development, School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, and served as the Dean, School of International Studies, JNU. In September 2017, he was appointed as the Director and Vice Chancellor of the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. He has been a visiting faculty at IIM Lucknow, IIT Delhi, Southern Methodist University, USA, and the University of Lucerne, Switzerland. Moving on to the eminent retired faculty, Professor Tca Anand. Since they couldn't join us in person, we request Professor Kumar to please collect the same on his behalf. Professor Tca Anand joined the Department of Economics, Delhi School of Economics in 1987 and served the department till January 2019. He served as the head of economics department in 2018-19. He is currently a member of the UPSC and served as the Chief Statistician and Secretary, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. He also served as the Secretary, ICSSR. He is an alumnus of the Delhi School of Economics and completed his master's in 1980. Professor Santosh Chandra Panda. Professor Santosh Chandra Panda joined the department in 1985 and retired in December 2019. He served as the head of Department of Economics from 2005 to 2008. He also served as director, Delhi School of Economics from 2011 to 2013. He served as the Dean and Vice President, Pro-Vice Chancellor of South Asian University during 2014 to 19 on deputation from the University of Delhi. He is an alumnus of the Delhi School of Economics and completed his master's. Professor Ashwini Deshpande. Professor Ashwini Deshpande joined the Department of Economics in 1997 and served it till May 2019. Currently, she is a professor at Ashoka University. Her interest areas are economics of discrimination, caste, gender, and affirmative action. She is an alumnus of the Delhi School of Economics and completed her MA in 1987 and a PhD in 1994.
Distinguished alumni, Professor Supriya Singh. Professor Singh did her in sociology in 1965 from Delhi School of Economics with eminent sociologists Professor M. N. Srinivas, A. M. Shah, M. S. A. Rao, Andhra Bete, and B. S. Bavaskar. This education shaped her sociological imagination, which connected personal issues around money, family, gender, and migration with social issues around marriage and banking, migration, remittances, transnational family, gender, and economic abuse. She later did PhD from La Trobe University, Melbourne, Australia. Professor Supriya Singh is a sociologist of money, migration, and family. She is also the honorary professor at the Graduate School of Business and Law, Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, University. She is the author of several books and also an award-winning journalist. Miss Shanti George, who is connected with us through Zoom. And I request the head of the department to accept the memento on her behalf. Ms. George completed MPhil with distinction in 1979 from the Department of Sociology. She served in the department first as a teacher fellow in 1982 to 83, then as reader from 1986 to 88 and a visiting fellow in 2012. She is currently an independent researcher and advisor. Her formative experiences at D School bridged academic learning, professional orientation, and exposure to distinctive social anthropology. This orientation provided her with professional and human awareness to draw on subsequently during various phases of her career. This includes her stint at the University of Zimbabwe, where she applied her learnings from India, as well as her present work for the Learning for Wellbeing Foundation in the Netherlands, that uses comparative research towards positive social change for children within various communities. Dr. Meena Kaushik is also connected with us through Zoom, and again request the head to collect the memento on her behalf. Dr. Kaushik completed her MA from the Department of Sociology in 1972 and PhD in 1978. Beginning as a consultant with IMRB, she helped to found the Qualitative Division for MARG as its Director of Qualitative Research. She established the qualitative market research field in India, innovatively applying semiotics to brand and market research and pioneering adaptation of the methods of social anthropology, semiotics, and social psychology to qualitative market research. She is today the founder and executive chairman of Quantum Consumer Solution, which is one of India's largest qualitative market research firms with a presence in 7 countries. Moving on with the eminent retired faculty, Professor Abhijit Das Gupta. Professor Gupta joined the department in 1981 and retired in 2019. He served as the head of the Department of Sociology from August 2014 to January 2017. He has authored and edited several books, his most recent book being Alternatives in Development, Local Politics in China and India, published by Palgrave Macmillan 2022. He is an alumnus of the Delhi School of Economics and completed his PhD in the year 1975. Professor Meenakshi Thapan. Since she couldn't be here, I request the HOD to kindly accept the award on her behalf. Professor Thapan joined the department in 1986 as a research associate and worked until 1989. She later returned to the department as professor in 2003 and retired in 2019. She served as the head of the Department of Sociology from 2004 to 2007. She also served as director, Delhi School of Economics from 2018 to 2019. She served as head of the D.S. Kothari Center for Science, Ethics and Education at the University of Delhi. Currently, she is director of the Rishi Valley Education Center, Krishnamurti Foundation, India in rural Andhra Pradesh. She is an alumna of the Delhi School of Economics and completed her master's, MPhil and PhD in the years 1979, 1980 and 1985 respectively. Professor Radhika Chopra. Professor Chopra joined the department in 1986 and retired in 2020. She served as member of the Board of Research Studies and Faculty of Social Sciences various times. Her research areas include gender and masculinity, urban anthropology, education, and gender. She is an alumna of the Delhi School of Economics and completed PhD in the year 1991. Professor Rajniwala. I'm so sorry. Palviwala. Professor Rajni Palviwala. Professor Rajni Palviwala joined the department in 1983 and retired in 2020. She served as head of the Department of Sociology from 2007 to 2010 and in 2020. She served as Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences in 2009 to 2010. Currently, she is a member of Executive Committee, Center for Women's Development Studies, Delhi and various other bodies. She is an alumna of Delhi School of Economics and completed her PhD in the year 1990. Professor Roma Chatterjee. Professor Chatterjee joined the department in 1990 as research associate and retired in 2021. She served as head of the Department of Sociology from 2017 to 2020. Her research areas are medical sociology, folklore and folk art, and sociology of violence. She is an alumna of the Delhi School of Economics and completed her master's in 1979 and PhD in 1987. I thank Professor Vasan for doing the honors.
Moving on to the Department of Geography, I would like to invite on stage the head of department, Professor S.C. Rai. Starting with distinguished alumni, Professor Usha P. Raghupati. Professor Raghupati did her MA from the Department of Geography in 1976 to 1978. She retired as a professor of the National Institute of Urban Affairs, New Delhi in 2017. Professor Raghupati is an urban planner with about 36 years of experience in the urban sector. She has worked on issues related to urban climate change, urban services, urban management, amongst others. She's conducted training programs for municipal officials and was involved in capacity building in the urban sector. She's an associate of the Institute of Town Planners of India. She has written many research reports and published papers on subjects related to urban affairs. Thank you, ma'am. We next have Ms. Nagma Seher. Ms. Nagma Seher did her MA in Geography from the Delhi School of Economics in 1993 to 1995. She has served 19 years as a journalist with leading news channels of the country, NDTV and Aaj Tak. She is a senior fellow with the reputed think tank Observer Research Foundation. She contributes to the leading Hindi daily, Hindustan. She conceptualized and anchored a much acclaimed daily news show on international affairs called International Agenda on NDTV. She was famous for her talk show on social issues called Salam Zindagi. She has been anchoring a Sunday primetime talk show on political and social affairs called Hum Log. She also anchored primetime news and discussion shows for 15 years and handled many breaking news world events like the 9/11 and 26/11. She produced and anchored International Agenda, the successful Hindi news show on international relations on NDTV India from 2011 to 2016. The show was awarded the Best Current Affairs Show at National Television Awards in June 2016. Moving on to eminent retired faculty. Professor B. Khan. He couldn't be here with us today, so we request the head of the department to accept the memento on his behalf. Professor B. Khan joined the department in July 1985 and retired on 28 February 2017. He served as the head of the Department of Geography from 2008 to 2011. He specialized in political and electoral geography. Professor B. Khan was an elected member of the Academic Council and Executive Council of the University of Delhi. And finally, late Professor R.B. Singh. We request his daughter, Dr. Anju Singh, to kindly accept our token of remembrance in his memory. Late Professor R.B. Singh joined the Department of Geography in 1985 and served the institution till his superannuation in 2020. He headed the department from 2013 to 2016 and again from 2019 to January 2020. He made seminal contributions to the discipline through his teaching and research. He specialized in environmental geography and was associated with several international collaborative research programs. Professor Singh published 15 books, 37 edited research volumes, and 240 research papers. His sudden and early demise at the young age of 67 is a loss to the community of geographers, Delhi School of Economics, and the University of Delhi. We take great pride in honoring late Professor R.B. Singh for his outstanding accomplishments and contributions to his discipline as well as to the Delhi School of Economics. He was a wonderful colleague, excellent academician, and a noble soul. This award is a small gesture to celebrate his life and his achievements. On behalf of the DSE fraternity, we extend our heartfelt condolences to the family members and request his daughter, Dr. Anju Singh, to accept the award in his remembrance. Thank you. We now request everybody on stage to please take their seats. We now invite on stage HOD Economics to present the Special Appreciation Award to Shri B.L. Malhotra, father of Dr. Harsh Malhotra, who has instituted an annual Best PhD Research Prize in Economics at DSE in the memory of his son. Harsh was a student of MA Economics in 2008 to 2010 batch. He sadly passed away at an early age of 30 years. He was awarded a PhD degree posthumously by the Toulouse School of Economics in 2019. Mr. Malhotra couldn't be here, so Mr. Surinder Kumar will be accepting the memento on his behalf. Thank you, sir. We now invite on stage Professor Paramjeet, Staff Advisor of the Delhi School of Economics, to offer the vote of thanks.
Respected Chief Guest, Mr. N.K. Singh, distinguished guest, Professor Ramesh Chand, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Yogesh Singh, Director, D School Economics, Professor Pami Dua, I feel very honored and privileged in proposing the vote of thanks. The annual day celebration is a day of very significance for the Delhi School of Economics community. On behalf of the Delhi School of Economics community, I express my sincere thanks to
Mr. N.K. Singh and Professor Ramesh Chand for taking the time out for the function and gracing the occasion, and I extend my regards to them. Honorable Vice Chancellor has managed the time given for the day, given his engagement in the university and other important academic activities as the academic leader in the present scenario. There is a special place in his heart for the Delhi School of Economics, sir. He is always available to us. It is very difficult to express any thanks to him in the words. Anyway, thank you so much, sir. I also express my sincere gratitude to the guests, especially Dr. Vikas Gupta and Professor Sri Prakash Singh Ji, Director, University of Delhi South Campus. I am very thankful to our alumni of all the three departments for gracing the occasion. You are the real ambassador of the Delhi School of Economics, and it is you who have kept the flag flying high of the school in the world. I salute and express my sincere thanks to our senior colleagues who've taught us how to live professional and community life. Given their various engagements, you gave preference to this day of the school. Lastly, I express my sincere gratitude to Professor Dua. It is through her sincere efforts and engagements that this day could be possible. Professor Surendra Kumar, Sudha Vasan and S.C. Rai has significantly contributed to the preparation for the day. I am also thankful to all my colleagues, teaching and non-teaching from all three departments. Personal staff of Mr. N.K. Singh, Office of the Vice Chancellor, University of Delhi, Engineering Department, helped in a significant way. Mr. Bhopal Chand, Ms. Meena and Mr. R.K. Soni from Department of Economics and Center for Development Economics staff deserves a special mention. And no doubt, there are many invisible hands. Since last 1 month, many of the laborers, those names cannot be mentioned, but their contribution is a lot. In an educational institution, nothing is possible without the active involvement of its soul, the students. After all, the students, they generally keep this light. The students, therefore, I am very grateful to all my students. Thank you. Now I invite to all of you a cup of tea in room number 107. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us on this day where we expressed our sincerest gratitude and earnest appreciation for the members of the Delhi School of Economics on their magnificent contribution to the institution and its reputed legacy. With this, we conclude the ceremony. For the members of the audience, I would request our distinguished guests, alumni, former and the current faculty member, the staff as well as the RTL staff to kindly head towards the room 107 and 104 on the first floor for tea and refreshments. Fellow 500 DSC students connected virtually in the audience are requested to remain seated for the refreshments. Thank you.
Congratulations. Meet again and again. Yeah. How have you been?